Hello and welcome to episode 135 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. On today's show, Marisa from Chicago will be joining me to do a little armchair Imagineering throughout Walt Disney World. This will be the first part in a 2-episode conversation on things that we think should be coming to Disney parks in Central Florida. This isn't just pie-in-the-sky fun, although there will be some of that. Many of the things we're discussing are changes rumored to be coming to WDW or that Disney has even hinted will be coming in the future. Let's get right to it and welcome my good friend Marisa from Chicago. Thanks for being here, Marisa.
Thank you for having me.
So this is something that we're going to do that's a little pie-in-the-sky, maybe some armchair Imagineering, but it's actually based in the real world. These are things that either need to happen or should happen, or in some cases are going to be happening in the next couple months and years. So we wanted to add 12 things to Walt Disney World. So we're just going to move right into this, and I think people will get what we're doing as the episode progresses. So number 1, I want you to add a table service restaurant at Magic Kingdom. Bonus points if you can do a lounge.
Okay, so we're going to be getting a Tiana's Bayou restaurant, which is going to be wonderful. And we're getting Mama Odies Lounge. So you're going to have the restaurant and then a little lounge. It's themed. It looks like Mama Odie's house, and you can kind of sit back, relax, get some small plates, get some fun themed drinks. And I think that would be a nice little escape from the heat and a really fun theme.
Okay, that is such a good answer that it's almost identical to mine, but I'm going to ask you a couple questions because I have some different details in mine. So I want this to replace Pecos Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have Tiana's Place replace Pecos Bill, and for all intents and purposes, turn that part of Frontierland into New Orleans Square like we have over in Disneyland.
Yep.
I didn't have Mama Odie's Lounge, but that is a really good idea. I was just going to do a very simple, once again, a nod to Disneyland and have a mint julep bar. The mint julep bar was going, I don't even remember the name of this quick service location. It's hardly ever operating. It's the one right across from Pirates of the Caribbean, but mostly it's just overflow seating for Pecos Bill. I want that to be the lounge, and then sort of have Pirates be the edge of Adventureland and the beginning of New Orleans Square, and then have the lounge on that side, and then Pecos Bill be Tiana's Place, and then that will lead over to Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which is, of course, where Splash Mountain was back in the past. So I definitely think we're moving in the right direction. We need some beignets. We need some really, really good jambalaya, some po' boys. Having some New Orleans food in that area, in my humble opinion, ever since the parks reopened from the pandemic, Pecos Bill has gone from being a good quick service location to just being a waste of really good real estate in Magic Kingdom.
Yeah, I could not agree with that more.
All right. So hopefully not all of our answers are exactly the same. But we are going to go to, this is something that is definitely happening, a full land to the right of Discovery Island in Disney's Animal Kingdom. This is going to be to either update or replace Dinoland USA. I think any hope that Dinoland USA is staying the way it is right now has been shot out the window. But I know what Marisa and I don't want to happen is Zootopia and maybe even Moana, which we've seen blue sky concept art for those two IPs replacing Dinoland USA. Since we don't want that, I think you have to counteract with something that you would like to see there. So what are you thinking?
So in my ideal world, you would just update Dinoland. I think that dinosaurs are kind of universally appealing to everyone. You could give some things a refresh, kind of strip it of the carnival theme and focus maybe more on like an archaeological theme. Maybe you bring in some Indiana Jones or something else, or, keep it devoid of IP, but just give it a different angle instead of saying, hey, here's this rundown carnival land that's getting run down. Make it a little refreshed. I think it would be kind of fun, which it's ridiculous, but I think kids would have fun with it to have, how there's the droid workshop in Galaxy's Edge.
Absolutely.
I think it would be kind of fun to have like a dino workshop and kids, it's almost like a combination of droid and Build-A-Bear. You can kind of build your own dino.
Oh my God, is that a good answer? Oh, that is a license to print money. So I hope we're not just doing the exact same things with all of these answers, because it would get to be a little bit boring. But I want to build on something that you said about not necessarily bringing IP, but I want you to think for a second about Fantasyland. There's a ride like It's a Small World, which isn't attached to an IP. But then there's Peter Pan, and then there's The Little Mermaid and Snow White. Disney has gone away from having lands with multiple IP inside of them. And maybe what they could do is update Dinosaur. Dinosaur the ride is definitely not doing well right now. I think we need an updated video, maybe a little bit better story. I know everybody likes the lines that we've all memorized, like, not our dino, he's not going to make it. I get it. I love them too. But maybe it's time to sort of refresh that ride, give it a new coat of paint, but also put something Indiana Jones where Chester and Hester is located. Maybe have something Chippendale Rescue Rangers, because you have some of those characters in Chester and Hester. I think you could incorporate IP to sort of class up the joint, if you will. You can take this concept of the roadside amusement park and make the rides a little bit more interesting just by introducing actual IP that people will recognize. And please don't make it Zootopia. That's all I ask.
Yeah, it's totally the same page. Again, please no Zootopia. I mean, I feel like put me in a room with Josh D'Amaro and let me lecture him for 45 minutes about why it's a bad idea. And we'll see. We'll see whose idea emerges, and it won't be Zootopia. I'll tell you that.
Boy, if I had a nickel for every time a woman told me to lock her in a room with Josh D'Amaro. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And
anybody who doesn't know, he's a good-looking guy. No, I think that it's a good idea. Also, when you talk about Moana, I was thinking about this pretty intensely for somebody who has way more important things to be worrying about in his life. But with Moana, instead of putting Moana and giving her a land, or at least a land right there at Dinoland, why don't you turn the Finding Nemo musical into a Moana show and let Moana introduce concepts of conservation, and you can use the songs that everybody knows, that everybody loves. It would get huge lines every day. It would be really, really popular, and it could still be part of the theme of the theme park, and maybe even have it be like a little Polynesian section that's not a full-blown land, but in between Asia and Dinoland USA. I was just thinking that might be something that you can cat a corner, give her a ride, give her a show, but in that show, tell everybody why Moana belongs in this theme park.
That is such a great idea. And honestly, that's the way I want to see Moana in Animal Kingdom, because that makes sense. It fits. It's a crowd pleaser. but it still like circles the theme of the park. I think that's a great idea.
Number 3, Walt Disney World is struggling to get locals and annual pass holders to buy hard ticketed events. So one example is this year I decided I'm not going to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. It's just not worth the money for me. I'm not doing the Very Merry Christmas Party. I probably am going to try to do Jollywood. That looks really cool, the new after hours event at Hollywood Studios. But that's sort of where I'm going with this. Disney needs to come up with some more themed after hours events a la Disneyland. They will do a Star Wars after hours. They'll do Pride Night, which they had, and the governor showed up to it. Now, I know the governor wouldn't show up to Pride Night in Walt Disney World.
He would, but for a different reason.
That's all right. We're going to move on right now. To have some of these themed after hours parties, I know Courtney and I went to 90s night at Disneyland once, and it was one of the coolest things we had ever done. I think they need more of these themed, hard-ticketed events to get people, which is what they want, to spend more money to actually have access to the parks, even though they already have APs. So what do you have on your list?
Okay, so I have one that absolutely won't happen, but it's what I would love to see, and that would be a Marvel night. I know they can't do it, but total blue sky, if anything's possible, I would love to see a Marvel night happen. I think that would be a huge draw.
Now, can I
obviously.
ask, what park are you thinking?
Hollywood Studios.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that fits the best. You know, still slightly movie overall related. But the one that I actually think they might, or the one that's actually possible, I would want a 2000s night. And I would put that in
Okay.
Magic Kingdom. But there are a lot of movies from the 2000s that are like super popular, like Emperor's New Groove is huge. And like it's got such a cult following. If you could say that there was going to be like Kronk's dance party going down, people would go nuts over that. Or if you like actually somehow pulled out a Cusco face character, people would go crazy. Lilo and Stitch, that's also 2000s, super popular. I mean, Goofy movie, you got that. You could pull that in. One of my personal favorites, Treasure Planet or Meet the Robinsons, maybe not as popular, but they've got cult followings. And if you appeal to those crowds, they're going to buy tickets.
That's who's going to buy a hard ticket event, is somebody who doesn't want to see the same 10, 15 characters each and every day. Yes, I understand why they have them, because vacationers want to make sure that when they're there, they have the chance to meet Rapunzel. But every once in a while, you want to see something different. Obviously, I'm going to go to 90s night as my first thing because of just my age. And when Disneyland did it, they had Mulan as Ping, and they had Megara and Esmeralda meet and greets. Like, those are so good. Obviously, the 90s have like the big movies, but they also have some of those cult movies. And I know it was the end of the 80s technically, but I'm throwing Who Framed Roger Rabbit into the 90s, because anybody who was at Walt Disney World in the 90s knows that rabbit owned the parks back then. He absolutely owned the parks. And that would be really, really cool. You could obviously then keep doing Chip and Dale as Rescue Rangers. I think this is probably a night that I would rather have at Hollywood Studios. And maybe if we do a 90s night and we do it at Hollywood Studios, we can take a little bit of a break from the continuity in Galaxy's Edge, and we can have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn and little Anakin and Jar Jar Binks. Throw Jar Jar in there. I don't care. It would be a great way to pay tribute to that first movie of the prequels that came out, of course, in the 90s. You could have Padme there. It would be awesome. And because it was a special ticketed event, you could use that as your excuse to breaking continuity in the land. But since I've already done 90s Night, I think another one to do at Magic Kingdom, and maybe they missed the boat on this because it should have happened with the 50th anniversary, and that was doing a 1971 or a 70s night in general. Maybe not 1971, but Goofy and disco clothes, and you could have Mickey dressed like Elton John. You could have Mickey dressed like Elton John, dressed like Donald Duck.
Talk about appealing to my niche interest. My goodness.
If anybody doesn't know, at one point, I believe it was at Dodger Stadium, where Elton John came out dressed up like Donald Duck. That would be hilarious to do that. So I'm just thinking a 70s night because it opened in the 70s, Magic Kingdom specifically. That would be a really, really cool one. But I love the idea of having after hours events. After the last one that my friend Jillian and I went to at Hollywood Studios, I think we've kind of realized, while they're amazing, give us just a little bit something theme-wise. Instead of just having it be short waits for rides and free snacks, give us just a little bit. Give us a cue for how we should dress. Give us a couple extra characters. We'll make it worth it. We'll give you extra money.
I also think right now, I mean, this is touching on culture as a whole, but like people are really getting into reasons to dress up and like make these fun costumes and go all out. So like give people a reason to do that and they will pay to do it because it's fun.
Just a couple months ago with Barbenheimer or whatever, when people were going to the movie theaters dressed up for the movies they were going to see, people are a lot more creative and they want to bring those things into their park going experiences. And people want to make going to the park part of their social media. Now, Disney thought, let's give them a ton of themed walls. And while that works a little bit, give us special nights with a cue. This is how you're going to dress. This is how you're going to proceed. We're going to play this type of music. It would be really fun to be walking down Main Street, USA, and hear Disco Inferno. It would be great. You could have the Guardians characters there because it's not under that Marvel rule for some reason. But anyway, those are some really good ideas. And I do like your point that people want to do these things. They're looking for these types of experiences now. Number 4, a lounge that is not in one of the theme parks. You can put it at Disney Springs. You can put it at one of the resorts. I guess you could put it at a golf course. I don't know if you're really going to spend time getting to it, but you can put it wherever you want on property, just not a theme park.
Yeah, so this one could go a couple places. It could go at Caribbean Beach or it could go at Disney Springs, just because Disney Springs probably gets higher traffic. But I want a Pirates of the Caribbean lounge. I want a lounge where it feels like I'm walking onto a pirate ship and it's themed and like, everyone's dressed like they're pirates and you feel like you are stepping into that movie set. And I know Disneyland has that Blue Bayou restaurant that's, in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And I want a lounge that has that kind of atmosphere, but is not connected to the ride.
I love it. I like that idea. Have you done Blue Bayou yet as a restaurant?
I haven't.
Is it something that you're trying to get for your upcoming Disneyland trip?
It's a debate right now whether or not we're going to do it because, gosh, there are so many good places to eat at Disneyland.
Yeah.
It's somewhere I would like to go, but I don't know if I can get my sister on board with that. So we'll see.
So this is something that I have wanted ever since Disney acquired Fox. And I know that Disney is now talking about maybe unloading Fox, or there are rumors that that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, because I want more than anything, and I know that this seems weird, but when we talk about iconic things, we talk about Mickey Mouse, and then Disney acquired Star Wars. Like, that's an iconic IP. And Marvel is iconic. And Indiana Jones. Like, these are big, major things that were intensely popular. And when Disney acquired Fox, they acquired the greatest television show of all time, and that is MASH. And I think we should have Rosie's Bar at Disney Springs. It could be right around the Hangar Bar, so we could sort of have themed bars towards IPs right by each other there in Disney Springs. But I think if you had Rosie's Bar, it doesn't have to be intensely themed. And then you have some like kimchi dishes and you have some Korean food. And then, of course, you just have your regular beers and maybe if there are any Korean liquors. I haven't done that much research in that. But, you know, also have grape knee-high that Radar always used to drink, basically a grape soda. Those things would be very popular, and it is such an iconic IP that when the last episode of MASH aired, after it was done, the plumbing in New York City collapsed because everybody was holding in going to the bathroom until the episode was over. So like 7 million people went to the bathroom at the same time. I think it would be great to have something there. And maybe that's just a niche thing for me. Number 5, a themed moderate resort. So I'm looking for a theme for the resort, but also a location on property. Now, I know that might be a little unfair to Marisa because Marisa doesn't know really the layout as a vacationer who just gets dropped off by transportation at her resort and uses the Disney transportation, doesn't know necessarily the roads, but hear me out. Just try to come up with an answer for this one.
Yeah, so this is something that I feel very confident will never happen, but I think it should have happened. And
I
would
just said a
love for
MASH
it
bar
to.
at Disney Springs, so we're blue sky concepting here.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear this. Someone's going to have like a conniption fit. I think we should get a Star Wars moderate hotel. And I mean a real hotel that is Star Wars themed, not an experience, a hotel. And I think you can have sections where you can divide it by movies or divide it by eras. So you could be staying in the original trilogy and it'll all be themed to that. And those characters could make appearances at the resort based on what area you're in. The theming could be so cool. Think about if you had like a Death Star pool. You could have a cantina restaurant. There are so many different directions you could go, and you can make it a large resort because you could have these different era sections. So it could have that moderate resort capacity, and it would be a huge draw for people. They'd spend moderate prices on it. You don't have to go crazy. It would be full all the time, and it would be a real hotel so people could just experience it how they want to experience it.
Just from your quick little description of what you're looking for from this resort, I'm almost seeing like Art of Animation is technically a value resort, but it prices out as a moderate. I'm almost seeing like a bigger version of Art of Animation where you can stay in the Little Mermaid section. Well, here you can stay in the prequels section, or you can stay in the original trilogy section, or the sequels, or The Mandalorian. I like it. I'm not sure Disney is going to just throw a resort with that IP that they're not going to charge the maximum amount of money that they could humanly get away with charging. And the next question is going to address that a little bit as well. But what do you have to say here?
I think that there's an argument to be made that deluxe resorts tend to be smaller. And if you go moderate, something like Coronado is a much larger resort than something like Wilderness Lodge. So you can pack so many more people into that resort. So even if you're charging, Coronado prices, which are upper moderate level. They're not that cheap. Or Caribbean Beach, which is inflated because of the Skyliner. And you could totally justifiably inflate these prices. Potentially, you could net out or even make more money just on number of rooms. You could always, it's Disney, they could do whatever they want. They could add a club level if they wanted to. It could be the first moderate with a club level, and boom, there's more money.
I like the idea. I'm not 100% sure on the execution of it, but like we're saying, this is all just armchair imagineering, so it's probably never going to happen anyway. I think there is a much more likely chance that your idea for a Build-A-Bear for dinosaurs gets stolen by Disney than this one, but I'm not sure. I would like a themed resort at Walt Disney World that is themed towards the Disneyland Hotel. So we're looking at a hotel that goes into that history and maybe does focus a little bit more on Disneyland. It could be on the Skyliner, so you're attached to Hollywood Studios, which of course is the Hollywood Park, if you will. And I think you would find a lot of people willing to stay a little further away. This wouldn't be on the monorail loop. It wouldn't be right behind Epcot. This could be in between Pop Century and Art of Animation and the Skyliner hub. And it could pay tribute to Walt. It could pay tribute to Disneyland. And a lot of people would want to stay in that hotel and experience those vibes.
I think that'd be cool. I mean, you could even do like a Walt's apartment suite. That would be huge.
That would make all of the money. You definitely find ways to upcharge everybody. You're very, very good at that. Build-A-Bear for dinosaurs. I mean, that is literally a license to print money. Number 6. What are you going to do with the building that once housed the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser? So Disney tried a deluxe themed, not only themed hotel, but your trip was themed, and it did not go well. But Josh D'Amaro has said they are not going to let this building go to waste. They are going to do something with it. So Marisa, what are you doing with it?
If I'm getting licensed to do whatever I want with it, I'm making it dinner and a show. I'm taking the Hoop-de-Doo format, which is wildly popular on its own, and I'm making it a Star Wars show where you go, you have dinner, you still pull in some of those fun themed foods, and then, you get to watch a battle between Rey and Kylo or Luke and Darth Vader. Maybe it varies depending on the night. You can pull in so much if it's just themed like a dinner. It could be, pulling in the upcharges again. You can charge good money to have someone go to a Star Wars dinner show. You could bring in beloved characters. You still get the fun food that you've developed for it. It feels like an exclusive experience. I think it would be a hit.
And we've talked about this before in various functions. Disney is trying to get ways for annual pass holders, locals, to come on property and spend more of their money. And this would be one of those things. A local can make a reservation to this restaurant just as easily or almost as easily as somebody who is vacationing. So that's finding more ways to get money out of regulars, which is something Disney likes. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I know I get a lot of pushback from a lot of locals who are like, I promise you I spend enough money. I'm like, I agree. I don't think that they agree that you're spending enough money. I like what you're saying here. I mean, I've thought about making this just a regular hotel that is a deluxe, that has a lounge, that has a restaurant. If you look at what Chef Mickey's at the Contemporary Resort charges for a character meal, and that's characters that you get to see all the time, What if you had a character meal with Darth Vader and a character meal with R2D2, and you start having situations where it's hard for the Mandalorian and Grogu to walk through Star Wars Galaxy's Edge without getting mobbed? Well, if you're having some sort of dining experience in this former hotel, now maybe the Mandalorian and Grogu walk through the restaurant and you get that quick picture. You pay a premium for it, but you don't have to have the 3,000 people who are mobbing him in the theme park. So I think that's sort of where I would go with that building, but I think we're really almost in the same vein, if you will, when it comes to what to do with the Galactic Star Cruiser. So those are 6 of the 12 things we were going to add to Walt Disney World. In a future episode, we will go through options 7 through 12. Thank you so much for being here, Marisa.
Thank you so much.
This has been episode 135 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Join us next Thursday when Sarah Says will be back on the show for some talk about the West Coast. Recently, Sarah returned from a long break away from the show to play our favorite game, Fact or Figment, about Disney's California Adventure. Next week, we'll return to Fact or Figment, but focus on Disneyland Park. Until then, have a great week.